In a post on Truth Social, he questioned whether he's being strung along by the Russian president.
Trump has asked Vladimir Putin to stop the attacks. Instead, we've had another night, just like last night, of hundreds of drones and missiles hitting various cities in Ukraine.
Hey everyone, welcome back. If you've been following global news, you've probably seen headlines about Donald Trump calling Putin absolutely crazy and talking about possibly sanctioning Russia. Yeah, the same Trump who once called Putin a genius during the early days of the Ukraine war. So what changed? Is Trump trying to take a tougher stance on Russia now? Is this a political pivot? Or is it just more calculated messaging as the 2024 election heats up? Let's dive deep, because this story isn't just about foreign policy. It's about power, strategy, lives on the line, and where America stands in a world on edge. Where things stand in Ukraine. Let's set the scene. It's been over 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. Since then, over 1.2 million lives have been lost, a mix of soldiers, civilians, journalists, and aid workers. Entire towns have been wiped out, families displaced, and war crimes are being investigated as international law continues to be tested. Recently, Russia launched one of its most aggressive attacks yet. More than 350 drones and missiles struck Ukrainian cities. Children died. Hospitals and power grids were targeted. This wasn't just military aggression. It was terror against a population. Ukraine continues to fight back. And slowly, Western allies are removing restrictions, finally allowing Ukraine to use foreign weapons inside Russian territory. That's huge. It's a sign the West is done playing nice. But is the U.S. all in? Trump's sudden tone shift. Donald Trump, known for his unpredictable approach to diplomacy, Trump's stance on Russia has always been complicated. During his presidency, he repeatedly praised Putin's leadership. In 2022, at the beginning of the war, he called Putin a genius for his tactical moves in Ukraine. That raised eyebrows across the globe. But now, in 2025, Trump suddenly calls Putin absolutely crazy. He's floating the idea of new sanctions and criticizing the Russian invasion publicly. At first glance, that seems like a big shift. But let's not rush to conclusions. We need to look deeper. The Putin call and what followed. Here's where it gets interesting and a little concerning. Not long before Trump made those public comments, he reportedly held a 2-hour phone call with Vladimir Putin. We don't know exactly what was discussed. The call hasn't been released. No transcripts. No recordings. But here's the chilling part. Just hours after that call, Russia unleashed one of its most violent assaults on Ukraine since the war began. Coincidence? Maybe. But critics aren't buying it. Some ask, did Trump say something that gave Putin the green light? Or was the call a bluff? An attempt by Trump to appear diplomatic while nothing changed behind the scenes? Trump's strategy, peace broker or political play. So what's Trump's angle here? Some believe he's trying to reinvent himself as a peace negotiator, the only one, in his words, who can end the war in 24 hours. He's repeatedly said that if he were president, this war would have never happened. That's bold. But where's the plan? Trump hasn't outlined how he'd pressure Russia to stop the war. He hasn't detailed how he'd protect Ukrainian sovereignty. Instead, we get headlines, not hard policy. And when it comes to actual action, like supporting new sanctions or arming Ukraine further, he's either silent or vague. What the sanctions bill would actually do. Meanwhile, Congress is considering the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, a powerful piece of legislation designed to increase pressure on Putin's regime. Here's what it includes. 500% tariffs on imports from any country that buys oil or gas from Russia. Freezing all Russian assets in U.S. banks and institutions. Targeted sanctions on Russian oligarchs and defense companies. Banning any U.S. firm from doing business with Russia, directly or through third parties. This is serious and bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans, usually at each other's throats, are aligning here. They want action. They want teeth. They want to show that invading a sovereign nation has lasting consequences. And yet, Trump hasn't endorsed a bill. He hasn't said whether he supports these measures. And he's made no effort to convince Congress or voters that it's the right move. Trump's history with Russia. Let's not forget, Trump's relationship with Russia is one of the most controversial chapters of his political career. During his presidency, he sided with Putin over U.S. intelligence during a press conference in Helsinki. He delayed military aid to Ukraine in 2019, which led to his first impeachment. He opposed NATO expansion, weakening U.S. leadership in Europe. So when Trump suddenly starts calling Putin crazy, people ask, is this genuine or just political theater? Many believe Trump is testing the waters, talking tough to appear presidential ahead of the 2024 election without committing to any actual foreign policy shift. Why this matters? You might ask, why does this even matter if Trump isn't in office right now? Because he might be again. And what he says, even now, carries global weight. Authoritarian leaders like Putin pay attention to U.S. politics. They listen when Trump talks. And when they see inconsistency, they exploit it. If Trump wins in 2024 and softens a U.S. stance, it could fracture NATO, weaken Ukraine, and embolden other regimes like China to act more aggressively toward Taiwan or other contested regions. This isn't just about Europe. This is about global power dynamics. And the message the U.S. sends today determines tomorrow's balance of power, global reactions, and pressure. European allies are watching closely. Germany, France, the UK, they've increased military aid to Ukraine. They've pushed new sanctions. And they're now giving Ukraine permission to strike military targets inside Russia. But they need a unified U.S. stance to lead. If American leadership is divided, if Trump keeps sending mixed signals, the global coalition against Putin could weaken. Ukraine has been vocal. President Zelensky has pleaded with all U.S. leaders to stay the course, to support the country's right to defend itself, to survive, and to rebuild. Every delayed action, every unclear statement, costs lives. What the polls say. Some Republican voters appreciate Trump's non-interventionist stance. They believe U.S. foreign entanglements go too far. They want diplomacy over war. But others, including many independents and moderate conservatives, believe Trump's approach is dangerous, that he's playing with fire, that his ties to authoritarian leaders are a red flag. Polls show divided opinions on Trump's foreign policy credibility. While his base remains loyal, broader support may hinge on how he handles moments like this, moments that test character, vision, and resolve. So, let's bring it home. Donald Trump says Putin is absolutely crazy. He says sanctions are on the table. He wants peace and fast. But where's the plan? Where's the leadership? Where's the consistency? When lives are being lost, when the world is watching, and when democracy is under attack, talk alone isn't enough. Action is what counts. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Trump is serious about confronting Russia? Should the U.S. impose tougher sanctions? Or is there still time for diplomacy to work? Like, share and subscribe for more deep dives. And remember, staying informed is the first step to making a difference. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.